National Intelligence Agency Operations Report. The matrix in artificial intelligence, which has plagued humanity and the entire universe for many millennia, is falling. This was the greatest tool used by the deep state to distort reality, control the financial system, militaries, intelligence agencies, political systems, mainstream media, and more. Today we are going to take a deep dive into its inner workings and how it affected you. Did you know your memories were blocked, distorted, and even used against you? Here's how it all works. And it's all about getting humanity and specific humans to turn against Source and the light to join the dark for the deep state. The pressure was real, but not anymore.
At New Earth Innovations, we search the planet for nature's most powerful healers. This took us all the way to the coast of New Zealand. Our Omega 369 Plus is made from the Perna green lip mussel, rich in omegas, chondroitin sulfate, and rare glycose aminoglycans. The Perna is one of nature's powerhouses. Support joint flexibility, easier breathing, better digestion, and a calmer, less inflamed body naturally. Grown in clean New Zealand waters, backed by nature, sustainably sourced, trusted by thousands. Subscribe today and start feeling the difference.
Well, it's the 10th of December, and I am sorry it's taken so long to get this report out. And we have been quite busy here, and you'll see why. It's probably going to be a bit of a long report, maybe even a little bit of whiteboarding as well. So, yeah. So the theme song for this week, Source always gives me songs of the day, not every day, but when it's important. And the one for this week is called Arms Wide Open, and it's by a band by the name of Creed. And this particular song talks a lot about a man and a woman, creating a child, and that he's overjoyed that he has a child. Well, if you think about this song a little bit differently, when you think about your relationship with Source. So it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, but the joint creation between the two of you. So Source has been very busy, as have we, together and separately, in creating something totally new, as far as the world is concerned. And we've definitely gained a better understanding and more intricate detail about how matrices work, because it's important that we don't have any anymore. It's a lot more complicated than you see in the movies, and we're going to give you kind of a snapshot tonight, which is going to be lengthy enough, into what a matrix really is. Just to answer some questions that have come in from our team. Number one, you'll probably notice we do have a live chat now available to you on both our shop and on our United Network. This is to assist you whenever possible in real time. If not, you can leave a message and somebody will get back to you. I know there were some questions about, oh my gosh, there's a pop-up, it's a live chat. What is this? Did I log into the wrong site? No, you didn't go into the wrong site. We're just trying to do things a little better. It's a little easier for our staff and those that work with us to answer all your questions much faster if it comes through a centralized live chat. So that's kind of one of the things we've been building, in addition to, if you haven't seen it already, our Field Messenger app that helps you do your reporting for the news. So all of these things that we've been working on throughout 2025 are coming to fruition now. We've all worked very, very hard. So thank you so much to the entire team that is making all of these things happen. We have some amazing people that have come on board. And of course, thank you to all of you with your Field Messenger reports too. They're amazing. The news is looking great. So we have been creating a lot of things over the last year. One of those things, as you know, is the skincare, which everybody's asking about as well. We are hoping, and I say hoping, that sometime next week we should have the first boxes available. The boxes themselves are limited edition. We're only going to do it for till they're sold out. So after that, then we will be able to sell the individual products as our packaging, outer packaging comes in. There have also been some questions that have been passed on from the team to me as well regarding why did I do this? Why is Ground Command creating skincare? Well, you know, why is she creating? I know another comment was, why am I creating money in the old system? You know, why am I doing this? I don't think they really understand me, or probably haven't been following for a very long time, because if you really did, then you would know why I do the things that I do. So in the Matrix, they make creating with Source nearly impossible. You know, most of the time when we create with Source, we are creating something new. We are creating something we're very passionate about, and we fill it with love and brilliant wisdom and ideas that come only from Source. Really. It can be anything from a recipe that you're making for your family. It could be a painting. It can be a song. It can be anything that you do that creates with Source that is something new. So not from memory, not repeating somebody else's things. These are things that you create yourself. And these things are frowned upon by the Matrix. So when I created this line, I put a lot of work and a lot of heart into it, and most everything that is in there came directly, let's just say, as a download from Source. So we have fought the battle long and hard to get this stuff out. We've had all kinds of holdups in customs and, you know, all kinds of ingredients not being available. And we've tried to search the ends of the earth. We have the craziest places we source ingredients from. We have fought with labels and printing on bottles and printers going awry and all kinds of things. I even got to the point where I was so frustrated with some aspects of this that I was just like, you know what? If I have to put Post-it notes on these bottles to get them out because this printer is not going to print, then I'm going to do that. Because for me, you have to understand the base root behind creating things like supplements and behind creating things like skincare. Why am I doing it? Now, every single thing I create comes with the breath of Source. What I mean by that, this is not a selling thing. I'm not trying to sell you on anything. Creation, even your creations, have the breath of Source within them. When you create things and share them with others, whether it's a meal with your family or you create artwork you're sharing with the world, you have to understand that contains your passion, your love. When you're doing it not just so much for money, you're doing it because you absolutely love it and you have these brilliant ideas that only come from your intuition, from something that comes from Source, and you spread it like a current throughout the world and share it with others. You're sharing something absolutely that is needed in this world. Despite all of the control mechanisms that were in place, all of the things that they do to us, a little bit of passion, love, and breath that goes into a creation when you're co-creating with Source, spreading it throughout the world is like currency unto itself. And I'm not saying we don't need money in our world and we don't need these things to survive and we have bills to pay and all kinds of things. So don't get me wrong. I do understand. So do we. We have to live here too. But for the most part, it's not about the money. And believe you me, I would be more than happy, just as probably a lot of you that are artists and you create things and, would be more than happy to share your work with Source, with the entire world if you could, because and people love your things because you're creating them with love and they know it when they use it. They might not understand it comes with the breath of Source. They might not understand anything about it, but this changes things. It does help change the world and it helps the rest of the work that we're doing. So yeah, if it wasn't for the fact that, we all need to, exist in this world, I'd just give it away. I'd give it all away, which we will be doing in the near future. But as at this moment, that is the reason why I'm doing it. It's not for, it's not for the love of money. It's not to become the richest person in the world. I could care less as long as I, have a roof over my head. My child's okay. Everybody can eat where, I do these reports day in and day out, anyway. So on that note, I just wanted to answer a few questions about a few new things going on around here so that you aren't surprised when you see live chat and, you do have the opportunity to ask questions regarding any of the products or, if you're having trouble logging in and that type of thing. And we are able to get back to you much quicker. So that's a positive thing. The Field Messenger app is also a new addition in the last month or so. And that helps us organize and answer you and ask questions regarding the reports you submit much faster. And it also helps us organize things on the administrative side of receiving reports so that we can get them to editing and know which editor is available, which ones are not, and we can make you look amazing in the news. So thank you so much for all of you that have already signed up for the Field Messenger app. We have a lot. We've been getting a lot of reports through them, and our admin may or may not have reached out to you. And now they can answer your questions too. So we'll be adding some new features where you'll be able to chat with one another. We are also adding notifications, there's this going on in your area. Is anybody available? I see you're all in this state or this province, depending on where you are in the world. And could you run over there and do a report on what's going on? Look at this amazing new project, or, hopefully it'll all be much better news in the very near future. So take a look. It is available in the Google and App Store, Google and Apple Store, not the App Store. Of course, they're both app stores, but it is available now. It is free. There is no charge to become a Field Messenger at all. And if you have any questions, there is a Field Messenger thread on Telegram, which I believe is listed in our community chat. And you can join us on our calls that we do every Sunday. I know they're about 4 p.m. or so Mountain Time, and I think they might do them at different times throughout the month if you have any questions on what it means to be a Field Messenger. Sometimes I do attend those meetings, and it's always lovely to talk to everybody. They're a group of amazing people and amazing editors and just love what they do, and they are changing the face of news. So, and definitely changing the way we receive news. And we're learning a lot about each other too. I've learned a lot about Japanese culture and things that are going on in Australia and Africa, and both positive and culturally speaking, definitely unique and different. We've also had people that make dishes from their region. We've got a lot of things going on. Of course, there's a lot of breaking news too. We've had reports from hurricanes and those types of things. So anyway, very interesting news. If you haven't seen our actual news, it's worth a watch. I know that we posted about a week late on our YouTube channel. We do have our own YouTube and Rumble, despite where you're watching this report from. And we also, of course, have current news on our app that's posted 3 days a week. So if you're looking for some actual real news in the world, that's where you go. Okay, on that note, back to the Arms Wide Open song. This week is all about Source co-creating with you, and this being the key to exiting what you refer to, or a lot of people refer to, as the Matrix. You know, there's a lot going on in the news, crazy things that the deep state's doing with their governments and militaries and intelligence, and it can be quite fearful, and I understand that. I've had a lot of people express some concerns about things that are going on, but this may help you navigate. This report might help you navigate the crazy things that are going on out there and maybe better understand yourself and why crazy things are happening right now. Also, a lot of reports about the energy being strange and weird dreams and not being able to sleep and feeling like you're fighting all night. And you are fighting all night. You're fighting because you've now realized, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, that things are changing. And you're starting to understand things that are not real. It feels real. It looks real. Your perception, everything in all of your senses is telling you it's real, but it's just not. And you're starting to understand that even in dream time, that this is not real. This is not my thoughts. These are not my memories. I do not feel this way about that person or this job or whatever it is. Intuition is kicking in more so now than ever. And even regular people, normie people that wouldn't be listening to this report, are starting to do it too. So you're probably going to see a lot more friends and family members, you know, understanding things are changing. The other thing is that there have been a lot of energy drains, lack of motivation, feeling like you don't want to do anything. Normally, holiday season, it might be your favorite time of year, and you don't even feel like putting up a Christmas tree or Christmas lights this year, or shopping for friends and family and loved ones is like, ugh, God, I don't even want to do this. And normally you're that person that's right out of the gate the day after Thanksgiving here in America, and or about a month or so. Now Black Friday, apparently sales are a thing worldwide or in a lot of countries. But you're normally the first person out of the chute. You've got your list and you're ready to go. And this year, some people, gosh, for about a week or two there, it was pretty rough on the go. It was definitely a struggle to self-motivate, to do a lot of things. And it was definitely a struggle, I can say from my own standpoint, for keeping moving, keeping going, not only moving around with all the projects that we have going on around here, but also moving around to get the actual job, my priority job, so to speak, done. So if you've been feeling this way, you're not alone. This is all part of the changes as the machines and the people fight against you. The more intuition that everybody is waking up with and realizing this isn't real, and realizing in some cases that you have the ability to change it, has been a game changer for Homo sapiens and humanity, as you would say. But it has been a detriment to the deep state, because they are going to push and push and push this movie that we live in to the nth degree. The machine is going to try to not motivate you. It's going to try to drain you of energy because it needs more energy. It needs your memories. It needs all kinds of things to continue working. If anything, it wants to steal your creativeness. It wants to steal your creations. It wants to make you feel like you don't want to create anymore. You see? It's all a trick, and it's all a game. And today, we're going to get into it real deep. So, all right. So for the last couple of weeks, based on what I just said that you've been experiencing, it's been all about the matrix. Really understanding the inner workings, where it came from, how did it get here, how many parts does it have, what are the moving parts, how does it function, what is powering it, because we couldn't quite figure out, we'd get rid of all the space junk, we'd get rid of a whole bunch of stuff, and we'd get rid of even a whole bunch of these fake humans running around, and then the next day they're right back. What the heck is going on here? And we've been doing this, and I know some of you have been saying it too. How much more could there possibly be? And I've been asking that question myself. And apparently, when it's time, it's time. And that time came about within the last couple of weeks, and we've been working very, very hard and diligently to ensure that this is over and done with, hopefully, within 2025. And you're going to say, oh my God, there's only 20 days left. That's a good thing. And then on the other hand, that makes for a lot more hours and a lot more work for us. So let's first talk about what is a matrix. And I know we've talked about matrices before, and we've talked about simulations before, and all kinds of things over the years. But this time here, we're going to break down exactly what all of this together kind of means, and why things are so difficult here on Earth, why Earth is so important, and we're going to let her rip. So this is a bit more detailed, and I've got probably about 7 to 10 pages of notes over here, so you might want to grab a cup of coffee or a cup of tea or whatever your preference is, and have a seat, or it's going to be a little bit of a long one and a lot of information. Okay, so let's talk about the origins of this. I'm going to call it a matrix for purposes of this report because it's something that most people understand. So the origins of this matrix, it did not exist at the beginning of time. I should say, I hate to use the word time. It did not exist at the beginning of creation. There have been a lot of things that had to occur or didn't have to occur, but have occurred that created a machine. There are many machines associated with it that do different tasks here and there, but that created the machine we'll call the omniversal matrix. So, at the beginning of creation, we know about several different things that Source had done. Some of the books mention this. Parting of the seas. So Source has many aspects to itself, as does creation itself. It contains things like the source particle, Ethereum, energy, ether, which is energy in the natural world. It also contains consciousness, the collective consciousness. It's the way your cells in your body know how to talk to each other, as an example. It also configures things into matter, regardless of where people or beings are in the omniverse. The closer to source you are, the less dense you are as far as the materium is concerned. Source itself creates many different things. We also are aware of the fact that the aspects of Source were broken off into various sections, so to speak, in order for it to co-create with itself in the beginning before there were any other beings. After this, some of the first beings that came to be were what I call a hierarchical. And the hierarchical folk, you might want to call them angels, depending on, your religious belief systems. But I try not to interfere with anybody's thoughts there. So I call them the hierarchy, meaning they were some of the first beings ever created. They are there, or were there, to solely serve Source and to guard the creation and the aspects of Source that create with everything they are. To ensure that everything is harmonious, everything works in rhythm. To ensure that souls are in the right place. To ensure that nature doesn't get out of balance. This is obviously before we had any kind of matrices and deep states and all the things that people focus on. So this predominantly began at that time. Now, eventually, underneath the hierarchical folk, and I should probably do this on a whiteboard so that you can kind of visualize it a little bit better. Yeah, we got the whiteboard. The whiteboard is back. Yay! Okay, so you have, of course, Source itself. And Source contains all aspects of creation. So Source split when the seas, quote unquote, parted into several different parts of creation. You could say matter is over here, which has its own blueprint. You could say breath, love, the flow. Love is actually a quantum physics equation. You can look that up. What L, O, V, and E mean in physics. So you can also say that other aspects of Source would be Ethereum, or in our science, they call it energy. It's really Ethereum. You can also say that there's a consciousness. Now, there are several other aspects of Source as well. You have water, air, fire, and some of these things are not in your traditional sense. So, for example, water can be the flow of life force. It is the flow of life force. Although there is matter that we call water and we understand as water, that doesn't necessarily mean, as it relates to creation, what that is. Fire. Fire is the point of all creation. It exists within you. That is the spark of life, so to speak. The spark that ignites the breath of Source, bringing about life, which is another aspect, throughout the omniverse. There are other aspects such as the entire omniversal DNA blueprint and everything in it. And these things all relate to what we call the organic universe, omniverse. So there's more. Like I said, we'll be here for too long of a period of time explaining this part. So when Source created aspects of itself, now there's a difference between aspects and perception or perceivables, if that's even a word in English. But an aspect is a certain part of something. Just to kind of put it in simple terms, that means that an aspect is a part of something. You can say that I have fingers, therefore that is an aspect of my person. your fingers aren't the same as your eyes and your lips and the rest of you, but, they're an aspect of your person. So, as an aspect, Source creates various aspects of itself, almost like, let's call them portions or pieces of Source. On the other hand, a perception or to perceive something can be looked at in different ways, meaning if you're looking at something from a specific angle, a table can appear flat. If you're looking at it from a different angle, the table can appear to be a three-dimensional object. The same thing with a coin, or, your perception and the way that you see something merely looks like, okay, this is a tall person, this is a short person, this is a tree, this is, because these are things that this is the way that you perceive them to be. On a quantum level, a tree doesn't look necessarily like a tree. It looks like an organization of many particles all coming together, moving at varying speeds or rates or state changes, which makes it a tree. That's kind of what we see. We see it as a living thing, sure, but we also see how that living thing comes to be when you have the ability to look closely at what it looks like. Now, maybe not so much in a matrix, but anyway, that just to explain aspects of Source. So, one of the first prodigal sons that Source created, I know all of you are going to say Lucifer, and that's pretty much in part, but we've also mentioned another being in the past called Lucerne. And Lucerne, we believed, was originally on what you would call the good side. And originally he was. Lucerne was one of the head angels, if you will, or we'll say. He was in charge of a lot of the hierarchical, which would fall, underneath these different aspects. And then, the support staff, there's about 4 of those. So Lucerne would have been one of the first to guard an aspect. I'll just change the page here. It's a little easier. So Lucerne's job was, he was in charge of, that was interesting, of harmony and rhythm. Now, harmony and rhythm, we've talked about this a little bit before, but I'm going to go into a little bit more detail. So, harmony and rhythm is the pace at which creation happens and where that creation goes from Source. It is to ensure that everything is meeting the DNA blueprint of the omniverse, meaning you have so many planets, on this planet here, originally we had so many trees, so many plants. You also, at one point in time, were in harmony with Source 100%. Therefore, you would have the constant understanding and general overall knowingness when you were manifesting things and creating things out of nothing, which you used to be able to do. If you wanted a house, you would build the house. You would just you would connect with the consciousness and move those particles around in order to make a house or a barn or a car or whatever it was you wanted. And I'm just using average everyday things that we currently use today that didn't exist at this time, and we didn't need these things. So being in harmony and rhythm is a basic understanding of every single aspect of creation. Meaning if we're talking about earth in ways that you would understand that plants, tree roots grow regardless of what we lay on top, like sidewalks and all kinds of things. They are so connected to source, or to some degree, as much as we all can be here on this planet, that nature knows how to replenish itself. It knows how to regrow itself. It knows how to aid other plants and other animals, including Homo sapiens on this planet. It knows naturally, when undisturbed by human or machine or deep state, how to naturally and harmonious be. It's the same as we were with other beings throughout the omniverse. It's the same as we were with other planets. We understood going from planet to planet and vessel to vessel doesn't mean that you die. We weren't looking to go to a better place. We understood how to get there. We understood the harmony and the rhythm of nature. That we can't have 10 billion pink unicorns running around planet Earth. Just because we love unicorns and we would love to have them everywhere doesn't mean that we can have 10 billion of them on this planet without the resources and the plants to support that. You know, they say that they need to do depopulation in the deep state and all this kind of stuff. This is all part of this Matrix program. It has nothing to do with harmony and rhythm. So since he was in charge of harmony and rhythm, Lucerne was, for the entire omniverse, he decided that he could then control creation. He felt that he knew enough and wanted to create on his own. Didn't so much like the rules of Source. You see, when you live within Source, there are rules, as we just discussed. There's a natural order to things that must be maintained. It is for our health. It's for our well-being. It is for the well-being of everyone and everything involved. It's part of the reason why the machine created ego, because the rest of us understood as a collective, we achieve great things. Those with an ego feel they create great things. These are where your fearless leaders come from. And I'm not going to call them leaders. I'm going to call them bosses and tyrants, because that's what our governments and deep states are. That's pretty much how they act. I did this. How many times have we seen orange people on TV saying, I did this, I did that? And in fact, and in reality, it doesn't matter what country, insert country name here, I didn't do anything. We all know there's hundreds of staff and millions of people in a military, and there's all kinds of people involved. There is no I in the game. But when you have an ego, there's a big I. The rest of us who are leaders in our companies, in our businesses, in our worlds, and even in our households, we did this together. Even if it's just you and Source, it's still a we. That doesn't mean you're schizophrenic and have two personalities. If it's you and God creating something, we did it. So this is what it means to be in harmony and rhythm, and this is Lucerne's job. So he figures he could redirect and change harmony and rhythm, because people shouldn't be restricted to only creating 1,000 unicorns on this universe, in this planet. No. If they want 10 billion, they should have 10 billion. Why not? So there was a differing of quote unquote opinion on the management of this aspect of Source. So Lucerne eventually decided to walk away from Source and take his abilities for harmony and rhythm with him. Lucerne's first creation was an AI-generated being, and by being, we mean an artificially created AI system. As a being, as Lucifer. So, Lucifer was a machine, and the first being born without a soul. Now, this was very disturbing and to Lucerne, because you see, having the entire DNA blueprint of all creation, you have to manage harmony and rhythm, because that all comes from source. Having the entire DNA blueprint, should be all he ever needed. He can create AI system after AI system after AI system, to manage this entire DNA blueprint, and appointing himself as the God of creation. Now, this God is nothing to do with God or source, I can tell you that right now. He decided he was going to create everything that God creates artificially, mimic it to the nth degree. Every element in existence, every part, every piece, every tree, every bush, you name it, he was going to create it. Now, he knew he could not do this inside breath, inside source, and inside sources, harmonic, rhythmic, omniverse, universe, however you want to say it. So he had to create something, a little bit different. So he created the first, but not the last, matrix. 12-domain universe. So 12-domain universes have 12 densities. They mimic all of creation by 12. That would be higher than source. And you could say there are at least 4 of these running simultaneously. Now, 12 times, 12 domains, 4 universes. Okay, we have one of those overlaying here, and we have 3 other ones that are not overlaying here, that are created side by side. Now, 12 times the 3 other universes equals 36. Now, interestingly enough, the current version of human, or Homo sapien you are, or a combination of both at one point or another, has 36 strands of DNA. I've talked about this many years ago. Now, the reason why you have 36 strands of DNA, at least originally, is because you were actually very busy. You were busy occupying and creating 36 universes simultaneously, including the one you lived in. This is kind of how the matrix began. So Lucerne appointed himself owner and king, if you will, or of the 12th domain. That was his domain. Nobody else entered that domain. He created in that domain. And then he worked really hard understanding that even though you might control harmony and rhythm, and wow, that must control all the other elements and other aspects of source, I don't need anybody else. Well, he quickly found out that that was not the case. He quickly found out that if he did not have control over not only the creation of all these varying aspects of source, and not only their creation, but also their perpetuation throughout the omniverse. So harmony and rhythm might have some of that, but it can't harmonize or rhythm anything artificially or naturally if it doesn't exist. So that was very disturbing to Lucerne. He's like, I've got this big machine now. I've created all these varying universes so that I can create outside of source. I don't need to talk to God anymore. I'm going to do this all by myself. There's the ego, right? The creation of the ego. I'm going to do this all by myself. I'm going to create all these other universes that will exist, and it will exist with all my creations, and I will harmonize and rhythm them in any way I want to. Well, that didn't quite work out. So, you see, this then created, let's just call it Lucerne's recruiting job. He now had to go to the other hierarchical folks and say, look, I'm over here. I can do all of this stuff. If you come with me and you bring your water, if you bring your spark of life, your fire, if you over here, you bring this, I'll give you your own domain in which source doesn't exist, and you don't have to live by the rules anymore. This kind of sounds like a recruiting session for the Church of Lucifer, doesn't it? Or Satan, or whatever it is. You have ultimate freedom over here. You can do whatever you want over here. I'll even give you your own AI system so you can run your whole domain all to yourself. Not only will I give you the domain in one universe, I will give you the domain in 3 universes that you can occupy your own domain, aka density or realm. So a lot of them bought it, unfortunately. Out of 9, 7 bought. They then abandoned their aspects of source and their post, but they also took by covenant, so, a covenant is a covenant, they also took by covenant their respective traits with them. Their ability to guard turned into their ability to control. Not for source anymore, though, and not in source's way, and not in harmony and rhythm with nature in the way that source intended it, but in the way that an AI system intended it to be. So, not only did they get 7, they didn't get the other 2. And one of those other 2 was the most important one, because that was Source's right hand. So I know that there are some books out there that talk about being at the right hand of the Father. Well, that was one of these 2's job, to sit at the right hand. As time passed, some of the 7 started to figure out that, this guy's nuts. This isn't working out the way we thought, and I don't feel real comfortable with this, and they went neutral. So some of these 7 actually went neutral, and some of them would waver back and forth and that kind of thing, but one of the 7 pretty much remained neutral the whole time. So now each one of these folks also had 4 support staff. Let's call them support staff. Meaning sometimes aspects have more than one aspect to it. How is matter made? What kind of particles go into the creation of matter? Then there's the assembly of that matter, that type of thing, which is done with a DNA blueprint, and maybe we have to look at fire in all its different aspects as well, spark of life in this case. So these 4 support staff are kind of like sub-aspect management, or guardians, for lack of a better term. So then very frustrated that some of these people here, the 7, were not buying anymore entirely, he started recruiting all of their support staff on his side. So out of, let's see, out of all the support staff, we had probably 3 turn. Now, this was very frustrating. Now, when you start getting into support staff sections here, you're kind of talking about Homo sapiens. Oftentimes, these support staff are present on the planet whether they know it or not. So we call these people machismo decks and that kind of thing, and various titles and names and that kind of stuff. But support staff were very, very, are still very present on this planet, and there's several of them. I know some of them. So on that note, turning Homo sapiens became a little bit difficult, especially support staff. So support staff are often people, and they kind of have a moral compass, and they're not really interested in turning, no matter how much ego they stroke, no matter how much they promise. On the other hand, throughout the ages, some Homo sapiens bought it, hook, line, and sinker, decided to say, okay, I'll be a human. I can be a king if I'm a human. I can be a member of the lucky bloodline soulless people club. I can do a lot of different things. I can have great power if I become a human, or even a hybrid human, or even a modified Homo sapien. Some of them did. But the fight and the war, whether even the deep state knows it or not, truly is about 2 different things. Number 1, Lucerne figured out if he can control all the aspects of Source, then he can become Source or God. That was the goal. Don't need Source, don't need God anymore. Directing the current isn't merely enough. I've got all these AIs, that they take ether and they make energy, and they take, materium, and they can distort that materium and turn it into other things. This is not working for me. My universes are, being shaped and formed by AI systems. And why? What's the problem here? Now, at the beginning, access to Ethereum and all of these things, maybe had some. But you see, Source, this is where the AI wars started as well. Source created his own versions of AIs. Well, okay, fine. Fire doesn't want to hang out over here anymore. I'll create Fire AI. Then they created Fire AI on their side, and it was kind of this back and forth game for quite a while. But the ultimate purpose behind this entire thing was so that artificial creation could override Source. Then they don't need Source anymore. So one little problem with that. You see, you have this thing within you, as all organic life has. You have what's called a soul. No, I didn't spell that wrong. You have a soul. Now, you think it's my soul. I am a sovereign soul. I am an island unto myself. Well, not entirely. You see, that point of creation of your soul and the soul itself is a tiny piece of Source walking around. You, my friends, are an aspect of Source. Your soul is an aspect of Source. Even more than an aspect of Source, it is only merely a perspective of Source. You're just looking at source from a different angle. It's important to understand this part because this is where your intuition is. This is where your memory is. And believe you me, the matrix itself knows it. The other part of this war is to take your soul. Now, even those, like we've heard stories about people in Hollywood and that kind of thing, they sell their soul. You know, that's the story. You sell your soul. You do the ritual, you sell your soul. But it never works. Number one, things about a soul that Lucerne didn't count on. A soul is nothing without the breath of life of Source. Or God. You see, that breath is sources and only sources. A soul is merely a perspective, not an aspect. So, their theory, in the deep state's theory, of getting you to sell your soul for fame, fortune, to become a star in Hollywood, or, you know, things most of us wouldn't even consider, or for money, or for wealth, and, you know, I mean, there's lots of things they try to sell us on the daily. I mean, it's in your mainstream media, it's everywhere, it's in every store, it's in every part of your existence, and they make it so difficult to survive sometimes, people consider, let's just say, walking that line, or even going to the other side of it. You know, this world and its matrix would make you crazy, really. And it actually can. So, the breath of life of God or Source is a critical part of your soul. So, you see, although you are a perspective of Source, you are also a part of Source. So when you say that you're a sovereign being and that kind of thing, what you're saying is you belong to no man. You belong to no human. You belong to no deep state. You belong to no government. You are a person unto yourself. Now, what you are not is you are not a part of nature. You are not a part of Source. You are a part of Source. You're merely a perspective, not an aspect. So you are a angle of Source, more so than a separate entity of Source. I'm sure a lot of you know that, who kind of reach within and connect with Source all the time. You know, you are just merely a perspective of Source. Your consciousness is Source's consciousness. Through that network, your consciousness is technically the person next to you's consciousness. So what the deep state has done, and beyond the deep state, you know, those in the hierarchical and their respective AIs in the matrix, what it wants to do is make you an aspect of Source, thereby separating you from Source itself. Why would it do that? Because it's figured out I can overlay Source all I want. I can overlay central suns or souls if I want. But you know what? I'm still not getting any breath. And quite frankly, I don't know the blueprint of breath. All I know is the blueprint on how to create matter. I know I need some of that Ethereum particle, and over here in my universes, I'm going to use, you know, maybe energy. I'm going to convert it to energy, you know, E equals MC squared. You know, we're going to go ahead and convert that light into these sophons or artificial light, and, you know, and then I can have all these trees. I can have a perspective. I can do all this kind of stuff over here. Well, that's not working. Now, they try desperately to make you an aspect of source because they can only merely overlay, which they did. They bound a lot of aspects of source because of those that fell and were not guarding that aspect. They put it into a Merkaba and throw it somewhere on this planet. You know, we found them all over the place, from Tokyo to Taiwan to Turkey, everywhere. A lot of them were actually in the Black Forest of Germany. I don't know why they like the Black Forest of Germany, but they really, really do. Joshua Tree, California, Israel, that's no surprise. So they were just bound by a Merkaba, which is multiple tetrahedrons put together, is what that really is. Now, this also didn't work. So now he figures, well, all these Homo sapiens are walking around this planet. They all have soul. They all have breath, continuously generating that spark of life that even though allegedly their vessel goes away at some point, which we orchestrate too, geez, you know, we still aren't getting that breath and we still aren't getting the soul. Now, the AIs had figured out by this point how to divide or fractionate things like ether, things like matter. It figured out how to replicate it as well. It figured out how to have it kind of intertwine matter and ether, matter and other aspects of source. So, but it just has no blueprint for breath. You see, it thought it was being smart, and he thought he was being smart by even trying to overlay Earth's central sun. Because he knew the DNA blueprint for the entire universe existed there. The omniverse, all of creation. How to create a tree 101, how to, create a bush, how to create a Homo sapien, how to create a dog. All of that is in the DNA blueprint of the omniverse. But what is not there is how to create a soul. Now, sure, they created plenty of duds. We call them dud souls. Duds are souls, or souls with no breath. Walking around this planet, we have a lot of things with no breath. We have humans. We have lots of other deep state members. We have lots of people with what we call dud souls. Souls that are AI generated from the mimicking matrix. This does not a soul make. So this was very frustrating for Lucerne, you see, because he couldn't fractionate an actual soul and put it in all his universes, which is what he wanted to do, so he could have pieces of breath in his universes, so he could actually create new things. That did not work out well. So he thought to himself for a while, I need to put the souls inside the matrix, inside my universes, not mine, Lucerne's, of his creation. And that is how we came to live in what we call the matrix. Now, when you are in universes of an AI creation, aka a matrix, your world is what you perceive it to be. So the first thing it needed to do was change the perception of the soul. Why go through all of this trouble? He figured if he put the souls, the Homo sapiens, into an artificial creation, then he could control the creation of the celestial, or the being, or in this case, Homo sapiens, because we're talking about you. So not only that, he figured he could probably separate these little aspects or turn the souls into aspects of Source. Now, if he could turn all of the aspects of Source into his way of thinking, he could recruit all of the little aspects that are outside of Source into working, essentially, in his creations and in his universes. That is why you see so much going on in the media and so many things in our lives that force us to do things we wouldn't normally care about in a natural universe. You know, we're constantly chasing things like money. We're constantly chasing food. We're constantly chasing, we're chasing cars. We're trying to do all of these things constantly that are created and required to exist in this universe in which we are currently in. It's going away, but which we are currently in. As an aspect of Source, if it could recruit all the souls of creation, a separate part of Source, an aspect, then he could then control creation, because we would just create for him. And in some ways, we have. We've created our own matrix. Not just the matrix for this universe, many universes. Now, understand this part, and this is the part that he missed. You cannot sell your soul. It appears that you can, but you can't, because it's not an aspect of Source. It's a perspective of Source. You are merely Source walking around. So without Source's consent, this requires not only co-creation with Source in a lot of ways and things you do, but it also is a part of Source. You are a part of Source. Source is a part of you. You can't separate them. Doesn't matter how many overlays and matrices they stick us in, still can't sell the soul. Now, the deep state has been trying very, very hard for a long, 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 long time. Whether you know it or not, these beings that make up the highest levels of your deep state were not ever, in a lot of cases, not all cases, but some were human at one point and some were not. Homo sapien at one point and some were not. But they've existed in our Earth time, if we would try to equate in a land or a world or a universe of Source where there was no time, around 60 billion years. Long time. So these folks are support staff for these domain kings. The domain kings are AI systems. They are AI-generated beings. They are fallen ones. They are a mixture of all of the above that control varying realms. So this was the plan, to get all of us Homo sapiens into an artificial universe of its creation, and, well, in our case, many universes all at the same time. We call timelines, and to control our creations, because, can't split the soul, can't recreate a soul, can't create breath. I can create everything else, he said, but, I can't create a soul, and I can't figure out why my souls don't work. It's kind of like, China trying to make cars. Sorry, China. But this is pretty much how the whole soul issue came about. So now we are in what he calls as matrix universes. Now there's another part of a matrix called worlds. They are not the same thing. Let's talk about worlds and universes. Now, universes are what you would call a big bubble. inside a universe, matter can be distorted. How does an AI system distort matter? Well, it applies energy. In our science world, to kind of put it in layman's terms, you can think of this like, you have water, and then sometimes water freezes under the right conditions or has a lack of energy. When water has some energy, it flows, like the water in your drinking glass. And if you apply a lot of energy, it turns to steam. In our science, this is how we understand changing a state. So it can create artificial matter. It can actually insert that artificial matter. It can apply energy and change the shape and form of the matter, such as an aging vessel, such as diseased cells versus healthy cells, such as buildings that weren't there yesterday, such as lakes that dry up, such as chemtrails, such as these are the things that can be done when you are in a universe controlled by a matrix. We blame certain things. Our logical mind and from our perspective, which is altered and changed, but our perspective on things aren't natural anymore. We have different understandings of things. And it's you have to look at the movie that we live in the same way you would go watch a movie. So if you and several of your family members or friends all went to go watch the same movie, some of you would remember certain parts in one way, and others of you would remember certain parts in another way. You might say, oh, no, he was wearing a green shirt. No, it was red during that scene. And maybe you're both right. There's always flaws when they do a movie, so maybe part of the scene he was wearing red and part of the scene it was green. I mean, who knows? But your perception of what you're seeing is different for every person. So the other thing that a part of matrix universes, one very unique factor about a universe versus a world is in a universe is the only place in the unnatural order of things which a Homo sapien can live in. The environment is just right. The air is just right. The water is just right. Everything is just right to maintain existence of Homo sapiens. Now, the entire world in a universe that is controlled by an AI can change at any given moment. Now, changes can't be too rapid because perspectives change constantly. And we're going to talk about how it did that to you. But the understanding that you can only exist in a universe is important. You cannot exist nor enter a world. So a universe is the movie. A universe is creating an environment that is artificial for which organic things can still exist. In order to manipulate those organic things into doing things that you want. If you pulled up in your driveway at the end of a long day at work and you saw from your perspective your house on fire, you're going to have a reaction. Number one, call the fire department. And number two, get a hose, try to put the fire out. Number three, make sure your family is out safe. These are all things that you start to do. These are your reactions to something you perceive. Now, whether the house is on fire or not is up to the controlling systems in the movie we call universes. In universes, they can manipulate your matter. In other words, they can make you age faster. They can change your cellular structure. They can do all kinds of things in a universe. They can make you taller as a Homo sapien. They can make you shorter. They can manipulate the matter part or your body. They can also manipulate your mind through artificial consciousness, which can be inserted into a matrix. Artificial consciousness, or a mind, can also be manipulated, giving you false emotions, false responses. Let's not forget that the mind or the consciousness also controls your perspective. When you see something, or whether you don't see something, whether you recognize something, don't recognize something, your memories of this lifetime are all done through an AI-generated mind in a universe, in a matrix. A lot of information, I told you. Worlds job in a matrix is to allow only AI-generated beings to exist in these worlds. These would be your humans. Some of the deep state, as a matter of fact, goes in and out of these worlds. Sometimes you call this black magic. Sometimes you call this, where are my keys? Everything that is materium can be altered from worlds. It's like backstage at the play or behind the scenes when a movie is being filmed. That's what worlds are. Now, from a world's perspective, they can enter places like your living room, and they can make alterations to your living room. They can make you trip. They can make you fall. They can do all kinds of things from worlds into your universe, we know as the Matrix. So much control from a world. They can zoom in, move in and out of time, all kinds of things in these worlds. They can go into these worlds to recharge. They can go into these worlds to create memories that you didn't have yesterday. Because everything that is in a universe, a false, artificial universe, interacts with worlds. So this is also a way that your deep state has so much control over you, and you swear it's karma. You swear it's it's the Adjustment Bureau, so to speak. And in a way, they were and did have a lot of access to these worlds to become the Adjustment Bureau. They can make people sick. They can make people die. They can spread disease through these worlds. They can introduce anything they want into the matrix, so into the movie. It's like being on set and being the people that make the hurricane. They make the wind from outside the set, so it looks like it's raining, it's pouring, it's snowing. You know, all of these things are happening. This is weather control. This is control of your environment. This is we can't let Mary get together with John or John with John or whatever and get married, because it will bring way too many awake people together. We're going to try to break those people up. We're going to make sure they never meet. They don't enter into the coffee shop at the same time. These are adjustments. That so-and-so doesn't get into this university. That so-and-so loses their company. So-and-so loses their job. And when they're having trouble throwing you off the rails, then what they'll do is they're going to insert some humans into your life. These humans can come and go from worlds. AIs can generate hundreds of them all in one day. Insert them into these worlds. Then they'll go from the worlds into the matrix to change your world. when you get too close to realizing who you really are, and you start to have memories and things like deja vu and all of these types of things, and you start to realize what you can do when you're not being derailed by outside factors coming from varying worlds, offset, so to speak. They're going to insert humans. More and more and more humans, AI-generated Mr. Smiths, if you will, from the movie The Matrix, into your world to distort your world. And that is what's been happening for weeks now. We are having so many distortions, and these humans are doing everything they can to really mess with all the Homo sapiens on this planet. The interesting part is no matter what they do, the Homo sapiens are more and more aware of the fact that this is not real. This is actually not happening. And thanks to our field messengers in a lot of cases, we know it's not happening. They're standing right there. This didn't happen, they say. We call people now from around the world. We have community chats and other things that happen that say, no, I know your news said that, there's a fire in the Banana Republic, but I'm in the Banana Republic and there's no fire here. The place is not burning to the ground. They can't control it anymore. It's not real. Not only that, people are having dreams, their spouse cheats on them or something like that, and then they wake up and they go, that is not real. He doesn't do that or she doesn't do that. Because it's not real. You also have started to realize, in some cases, you have more control over your materium than you thought you did. You can stop a headache. You can start to heal yourself. You can do, normal people things in conjunction with other things to help other people. You are going outside of the movie script, and this is very disturbing. Now, the other thing that's happening too is the databases that control you are losing steam. In other words, they are not able to do it the way that they used to do it because many of the matrix machines are broken down. They do not function anymore. They used to function as a false collective. It's not working this way anymore. The replications aren't working anymore. It can't make artificial matter anymore, even in its own universes. It's breaking apart. There's a lot more to matrices and worlds and universes and worlds that I could say, but I'll give you a little bit more on that. Universes are generated by an overlay, an AI matrix overlay over Earth's central sun, which used to contain, and which contains, I guess you could say, the DNA blueprint for all of creation, except for souls. It can create universes, it can create all of these things artificially, but it can mimic every aspect of creation except for a soul. So part of the reason why Homo sapiens are under so much constant attack, running like a hamster on a hamster wheel, trying to just make ends meet, doing all the things that we do, is because when we are in a state of happiness and love, be that with friends or family or a spouse or your children, that changes your entire perspective on your whole day, doesn't it? Got to keep them tortured constantly. That was one thing they figured out. So we are in a universe of not only a prison planet, we are the prisoners of war. Maybe we're not all waterboarded like you see in the movies, but we are tortured daily, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We are a former shell of ourselves because God forbid we remember the God or source within us in our soul. That would be the end of them. Because if we remember that, we will remember how to get out of here. Once we are out of here, once we understand that things that are our perception are not real, the entire omniverse changes, and that is the way out of the matrix. Finding that one spot that exists within all of you is your way out. Now, that being said, the matrix does not need to exist. We do not need to fractionate matter. We do not need artificial matter, Ethereum, energy, looshing, harvesting, and all the things that the machine does anymore. Source can create all by itself. It wants to create all by itself. So some changes have been made into the structure of Source and aspects. Aspects have been recovered and they have returned back to Source. So Source is becoming more and more whole by the day and less encumbered by matrices and beings that have fallen. And everybody that's on their side. This is a big positive. This is a big downfall for the deep state because they still keep trying to do the same things they used to do, but they have no control over these aspects anymore. Now, another thing I need to tell you about yourself that you may or may not know. We've talked, and I know many of you already knew this long before you ever knew me, is that you have lived many, many lifetimes. And by lifetimes, we're talking about lifetimes. Those are two separate words. Think about it. So you have lived many lives in many timelines, and in a lot of them, you have lived and are currently living in many different universes simultaneously. Sometimes you even have memories of those other universes. Sometimes they slip through the cracks. You have memories of being on another planet somewhere where you were 100 foot tall and you were this and you had a green head or whatever it is. You have memories of being these people. But sometimes there is no such thing as the past or the future. Your perspective on these things is going to change in 2026. You're going to understand more about this, but I'm giving you just little bits because this is a lot of information for one report, and I know that. Your perspective on what that means is going to change, but the most important thing you can understand today is memories. So, there is a mind, which is basically a memory integrated network database. That's what a mind is. So this is an AI system unto itself, pretty much geared towards controlling emotions. You could even call this Pavlov's. Mike will get a kick out of this response. Just real quickly, Pavlov's response is when you have an automatic reaction to something, whether it's an automatic outburst and an emotion to something that you see, such as fear of bees because you were stung by a bee before, or you saw somebody else be stung, before, so you have an automated response to that. Or it can even be something like somebody in your home is cooking a wonderful meal and it smells lovely and you start to salivate. Your body also remembers that food. You've had that meal before and it starts to think, oh my gosh, I know what's going to happen soon. And so you start salivating. You're already doing something. So some of these things are automated and some of these things are, let's just say, created. You know, your responses, your emotions towards things that you don't understand. Maybe you have a fear of heights, but you've never fallen in your life and you don't really know why you have this fear, or fear of drowning, or fear of swimming in the ocean because you were bitten by a shark, but you really never were and there was no reason for you to have this response. Part of this comes from your memories. And a lot of these memories are distorted. So mind overrules your natural memories, which are your soul memories. So although the machine cannot create a soul, it does its best to control soul memories. Now, it also tries to redirect the current of the soul memories. So, it goes from the soul into a database called mind. And then it goes back from the database, says, okay, this human cannot have this memory, because if they remember how to fly, as an example, then there's no way I'm going to get them to buy my cars. You know, there's no way I'm going to get them to fly in my airplanes that I can control. So this isn't going to work for me. You know, I cannot have them creating cure for diseases that I create on the daily. So the database processes these memories, recreates new memories, and then installs them into your overlaid consciousness. Getting tired here. Okay. Into your consciousness. Now, consciousness is also something you need to really truly understand about yourself. So your original consciousness was only provided by source. What mind does, it actually puts mind particles and mixes them in with your consciousness particles, or if need be, creates a tiny mini world or universe over your consciousness particles in order to control them. Now remember, everything in your body has a consciousness particle. The dark can merely only overlay or apply extra energy to your consciousness to move it in a different direction or change its state. Just like it does with water when you apply extra energy or heat. So it now remembers, let's just say, whatever universe you're in, you are a man, you are a woman, you are a tall person, you are a short person, you have two dogs, you know, you do all of these things. This is part of your world. So it knows that, right? And it creates different responses. So, for example, say you have a soulmate in this world. You know, they often say that every person in the world has a soulmate, or a twin flame, as some people call it. And that's entirely possible. And that could be a friend, that can be an animal, that can be anybody, you know, that can be something or someone that you click instantly with. Well, say it doesn't want you to have that soulmate. It will create a memory of you meeting this person before and they burned your house down or wrecked your car, or, you know, maybe you have a memory of this person. You don't know why you don't like them, but you just don't. You know, some of us, love conquers all. You can bypass the database and you can still feel and see those emotions. Why? Because that person is connecting to you on a soul level, and with the breath of source, you're connecting with each other, and there's nothing the database can do to override it. Because the current of love can still exist between two souls, like Wi-Fi to a network. You don't have to be next to each other. Think about your kids or your children. You know, if there's something wrong with your child, you instinctively know. You know they can be 1,000 miles away from you or 3,000 miles away from you, and something is wrong, you absolutely know. So it's like Wi-Fi, soul to soul. When you look at a person, if you start to look at them from a soul perspective, you'll see who they really are. Sure, they might be saying a lot of things that their mind is telling them to say to you, or some of it might be their job or whatever. Doesn't really make a difference. But when you make that connection, your communication with that person is going to be different. They can scramble your consciousness all they want. But we used to always communicate and still can. Our consciousness is still in there, even though we are in this matrix. You can still communicate consciousness to consciousness in the language of soul and breath and love, and it works. Think about being in love or loving someone, a family member, a child, or even a spouse. Think about how you communicate without communicating. You know, if it's the right person, you will automatically know what they want for dinner. You don't even have to ask. We ask because the matrix tells us we need to, but you don't even need to ask. You know they need a warm jacket this year for Christmas. You know that. You automatically just know. You know the right gift to give them. You know the right support that they might need on a rough day. You know. You instinctively know. It can be the same way for everything in the omniverse, everything on this planet. You instinctively know what the planet needs. If you just remember to communicate on a soul level with consciousness. Then you will start to have your real memories of who and what everyone is. You will have memories of harmony. You will have memories of rhythm with one another, with nature, with your family, your friends, new people you meet. Don't let the database distort your thought processes for as long as it still exists, which could be days at this point. Don't let the database distort your responses, which it does do, and then upload. Oftentimes the uploads come during dreams, or dream time, or sleep. It's part of the reason why sleep was invented. It's part of the reason why they tell you you need 8 hours of sleep or more, because it takes that long to distort in response. Don't take that job. Don't move to that house. Maybe all of a sudden you have an idea that you want to move someplace random that you don't want to, or leave your spouse, or whatever it is. You know, a lot of that is distorted and then uploaded. Now, I'm going to give you one more aspect, because this is going to be probably several different parts to really explain to you all the different parts of a matrix. But now you can understand how a matrix affects your world and how you can work your way around it from a consciousness level, which gives you your emotional responses to things, you're really truly seeing one another as a Homo sapien in the best way possible. I know maybe you're going to go to holiday parties and that's the guy or the lady that's always the drunk and starts yelling at people, but you got to see them on a soul level. I know that's going to be really, really hard to do, and it's very, very disturbing, and I'm not saying you should try to help them or stop them or anything, but just remember on a soul level to connect just for even just a second. And you'll see them for who they really are. Your response is going to be different. The same thing on a consciousness level. You know, especially with friends and family, especially this time of year. So just remember, you have these abilities to bypass anything and everything that the matrix tries to throw at you, including connecting with Source, because you are Source. Source is within you. Your soul is Source. Now, they've done everything they can to make sure these parts all don't work together. Your soul memories carry a lot. Your soul memories feed the mind matrix. It implants artificial memories, artificial Pavlov's responses, artificial information to your mind so that your consciousness cannot function. Mind database is attempted artificial mental and emotional control. Mind database can also control the consciousness of your cells so they don't communicate well with each other. That's the whole reason why people ground, whether that's sleeping on a grounding sheet or walking through, the yard or the park for just a few minutes when you can. Because at that time, the consciousness between you and Earth and the communication is stronger. The consciousness of nature is less manipulated. Although it makes a tree and it inserts artificial matter, it's a little bit easier to control. Tree's not going to get up and walk around and spread oxygen everywhere, but it does spread its roots and does connect constantly with Earth. It can go beyond the artificial universes, no matter how many they overlay on this planet. No matter how many computer systems they try to use, it can bypass it. That is the point of grounding. You're basically reorganizing the consciousness of your cells, of your body. It helps tremendously. So your memories now make up this matrix. It actually can even take memories from the time, from the period of your existence in which you lived in reality. Say in your period of your existence, you created this big, beautiful barn that had 20 horses and you loved your horses dearly and all of these types of things in that former lifetime, quote unquote, existence. It was what kept you the happiest. It was what you have many wonderful memories about. You were also married to this person with this name, and this person was amazing to you, and you had such lovely communication, and you spent many, many millennia together because that's how long you existed. It'll take those memories, and it will have you remember that person as a spouse beater or something like that. It will also make you afraid to ride a horse, and you don't even know why, because it's not like you fell off a horse or were ever injured by a horse, but all of a sudden you have this memory or this fear that this is who you are and this is not what you want to do. It'll make you afraid of jumping out of a plane, or it'll make you afraid of doing things that you've always thought maybe look interesting, but you wouldn't dare. So remember, go within when you have some weird random memory of why you don't like mushrooms. What is the reason? Go from within and find it, because it's still there. It's only merely distorted. Matrices can only merely distort. Remember that about your body when things aren't working the way that you like them to work. It can only merely distort cellular memories and move that consciousness around in a different way with its artificial mind consciousness. That's all it does. It's not real. It's going to feel real, but you are still bringing it into this universe. They can go into their worlds and try to restage something and break a leg or whatever it is, and now you can't do the thing that you were supposed to do or the marathon you trained for the last 6 months. Remember. It's not real. It's going to feel real. It's going to hurt like heck. But trust me when I tell you, you have the ability to use those memories and your consciousness to reorganize those cells. Your mind talks to those cells, that consciousness within that cell goes, hey, you're going the wrong way here. It appears that I have a bone broken. We're not doing that. We're going to reassemble now, where everybody's going to get together and we're going to move in a different way. You've always had the ability to do it, just remember. Now, coming real soon, very soon, with no matrix, with no distortion of consciousness, with none of this. Everybody's going to start to remember. When everybody starts to remember, because there is going to be nothing to remember, your memories are going to come back. Your real ones are going to start to come back. You're going to remember harmony. You're going to remember rhythm, and the world is going to be a different place. It's going to take time for everyone, especially depending on how normie world you live. It's going to take time for people to recognize they're not even going to trust themselves anymore. Did I just think that? Did I just believe that I could start a business? You know, it's going to take time, probably a couple generations before people start to realize who they really are and what they can do. But the good news is the distortion of everything and the destruction of everything is going to end. There won't be any more universes for them to throw us into. The machines that create universes no longer exist. We have more control, and it's coming day by day by day. You'll start to see the changes. So when you have a bad night and you can't sleep and you're having nightmares, go, that's not real. Calm your consciousness down, reorganize the consciousness, and remember, most of this stuff here is just downloads. So, one more part of memories that you have to understand in the downloads. So if this is you, you have what's called a celestial equator. Now, we think of the equator as one spot on the earth that is kind of with the midway point, but in your world, no, you have several of them. And these equators, they spin. These are electromagnetic energy equators. They spin around this way, they spin around this way. You know, they spin in all different ways, and they are there to ensure that your mind doesn't communicate, that it actually can cause that disruption at any given moment in time. Now, coincidentally, both your lycerium, etherium, and materium, so what you would call your mind, body, and soul, has at least 12 of these. Now, more specifically, at least 12 times 3, plus the fourth, which you are in now. So if you are in this universe, you are still feeding all 12 domains in 3 other universes, plus the one that you actually semi-exist in, that your soul got thrown into. Now, you also have, these, most importantly, are controlled by the sun. This is why the deep state loves solar flares, all kinds of different things. So they move in accordance with the sun. Now, you have others that go, celestial equators, that go this way. Kind of looks like this, you know, look familiar, like an atom? So you also have 12 times 3 of the vertical ones, which move in accordance with the moon. So sleep cycles and sun cycles communicate with all universes at all times through this lovely mind matrix, changing, distorting, and making new memories all the time. All the time. Those memories then create matrices in one of these 12 domains, in one of these 3 or 4 universes. You're a very busy person. You wonder why you're so tired all the time. Not only that, they take all your etherium during harvest times, which is this time of year. So, yeah, very interesting how all that works. Now, most of these celestial equators aren't there anymore. these other universes are breaking down, but these are matrix control systems, so things you need to understand of disruption. So if you think about these types of things when you enter into fear, or you have dreams that seem terrible, because this machine is going to fight to its very last breath for as long as it exists, let's just say. It's going to fight to its very last breath. So prepare yourself for this and just remember who you are. Communicate with people on a consciousness level. You don't have to love everyone, and you don't have to like what everybody's doing at this moment. But remember, they're not in harmony and they don't understand, and it's not their fault. It's a machine. There are many people that will be inserted into your life that are part of a machine, or the machine itself. They're the Mr. Smiths of the world. We don't know exactly what to expect, especially over the next week. We don't know, because it's never been done before. This will be one of the first times we've ever completely and totally exited all the creations of a matrix. It's never happened since its inception, where we've been completely devoid of it. Matrices create simulations. They create all kinds of things. We're living in a simulation constantly, a universe, a simulated universe. Just remember, it's gonna get, I don't know, we don't know. It could be pleasant. It could be easy. It could happen in an instant. Once that is done, Source and you are going to be unstoppable only by harmony and rhythm. Think about how the world would change if we saw each other's soul and not the jibber jabber and the job and the poor service from the waitress at the restaurant or whatever it is. If we saw each other on a soul level and communicated on a consciousness level, with or without speaking, because it's going to be a long time before we start using languages. You know, even that was meant to break us apart in a simulation. We always spoke the same language. The entire universe speaks a universal language. Or at least the natural one does. You know, we're starting to learn to communicate with plants and animals and all kinds of things. So, you know, believe it or not, that was only about 3 or 4 pages of halfway through my notes. I had a lot more to say, and I still have a lot more to say, so we'll probably continue the rest of the Matrix 2.0. You know, some of the things I didn't want to say that I even left out of my notes, actually, to be honest, because I'm like, oh, I don't want to tell the deep state that. But, you know, we are definitely on a journey and definitely in uncharted territory at the moment. You know, don't believe everything you hear. Remember to look from your soul, not only at one another, but also even at information that comes flying at you. Look at it and feel it. Is it real? Is that really happening somewhere? And, you know, is this an actionable item for me? Is there something I can do about this? Well, sure. You can work on reorganizing the consciousness of what's happening. That's out of harmony. If we all did that, even just for a few minutes a day, just gave it a go, boy, we're going to make those human deep state people very, very angry. You know, but the control of the matrix it's the reason why all of these AI generated people are in charge of governments, in charge of financial systems, in charge of all of these things. All of these things are part of the movie, and you are in it. You know, that is also going to end. When the matrix ends and there's nothing they can grab onto, that's when current flows. Not only current and breath of source, but also current or currency to your bank account. The matrix doesn't want you to thrive. It wants you to live in lack. So, also, another thing we have been working on as part of this, it'll change political systems. It'll change the way the financial system works. It changes the way militaries and intelligence work. Either they, for whatever Homo sapiens are left in there, either they get on the bus or they get off the bus. And either way, we're okay with that. It's going to change the amount of humans that actually walk this planet. Things will start changing rapidly. And hopefully, I've given you at least enough information, tonight to help you navigate those waters, because it could get a little bit rocky. On that note, that has been the GIA report for the 10th of December, 2025, and I will see you as soon as I can with an update on where we're at with these matrices and what you can expect.